a quietly efficient property manager for Arboreal Ridge Estates, an exclusive gated community. My job is to ensure everything runs like clockwork, perfectly within the letter of our meticulously crafted bylaws. I know every single clause, every amendment, every obscure appendix by heart. Precision is my religion. Our residents pay handsomely for tranquility and order. Be not me, Byron Thorne, our newly elected Homeowners Association Treasurer. He is an entitled, blustering titan of self-importance. Byron inherited his family's manufacturing empire, along with a colossal sense of superiority. He lives in the grandest house on the most manicured lot, overlooking the pristine Arbor Lake. He sees himself as a visionary leader, but he is merely a bully with an overinflated bank account and a pathological disdain for rules. Byron's reign began with a flurry of innovative proposals. These were invariably thinly veiled attempts to aggrandize himself or generate funds that always seemed to disappear into vague administrative costs. He loved to micromanage, often bypassing established protocols. He would frequently corner me in the main office, a smirk plastered across his face. "Marcus," he'd boom, leaning over my desk, "we need to streamline this guest pass nonsense. My cousin's gardener was held up for 10 minutes last week. 10 minutes. Unacceptable." I explained our digital guest registration system, designed for security and efficiency. It required guests to be pre-authorized via our resident portal. It's a vetted system, Byron. It prevents unauthorized access and ensures accountability. He waved a dismissive hand. Accountability. We need expediency. Just tell the gatehouse to wave through anyone who says they're Thorne's delivery. Simple. He considered this a directive, not a suggestion. I smiled, nodded, and immediately emailed the gatehouse supervisor, reminding them to adhere strictly to protocol. Per section 4.1b of the Security Operations Manual, Byron never knew. He was too busy congratulating himself. Another gem occurred when he decided the community needed a centralized aesthetic upgrade. This involved tearing out the classic azaleas and hydrangeas lining the main boulevard. He wanted to replace them with a single species of highly ornate, expensive Japanese maple. A completely unapproved, unbudgeted, and frankly, unnecessary project. The current flora is simply pedestrian, Marcus, he declared during a board meeting, not even looking at me. My landscapers have sourced the most exquisite bloodgood maples. We'll have them installed by next month. Just coordinate with facilities. I calmly interjected. Byron, according to our covenants, conditions, and restrictions, specifically Article 7, Section 2, any significant landscape alteration to common areas requires a full community vote, preceded by a 30-day notice period and an open forum meeting. Furthermore, a detailed budget must be approved. He scoffed. Red tape. I'm the treasurer, Marcus. I approve the budget. And as for a vote, I'm sure the board will defer to my superior judgment. The other board members, mostly busy professionals who disliked confrontation, often did. They would glance nervously at me. I documented the exchange. Every single time. My internal monologue often drifted to the delightful irony of it all. He thought he was untouchable. He believed his money bought him impunity. I, on the other hand, knew that rules were like invisible steel cables. You could ignore them, you could strain against them, but eventually they would snap back. And they would snap back hard. The breaking point arrived with his most egregious overreach yet. For months, Byron had been championing a lakeside pedestrian path initiative. He pitched it as a beautiful new amenity, offering stunning views of Arbor Lake. In reality, it was a ridiculously expensive, meandering brick path that would cut directly across the picturesque, undeveloped natural buffer zone that several lakeside properties bordered. My property was one of them. He bypassed planning committees, ignored environmental impact assessments, and fudged budget numbers that seemed to inflate weekly. He unilaterally declared that sections of this path would require a small donation of land from affected residents, then to use the path to access the lake from their own property. They would be subject to an annual access and maintenance fee. I saw the internal memo circulate. It stated, affected residents must voluntarily deed over a 3-foot strip of their private property to the Homeowners Association for the new lakeside pedestrian path. This is a condition for future access to the path from their individual lots. I read it twice. This was a direct land grab, a shakedown, pure and simple. My property bordered one of the prime sections for this proposed path. One morning, I woke to the distinct sound of heavy machinery. Outside my study window, a mini excavator was already digging a trench exactly 3 feet into my meticulously maintained lawn, precisely where my property line met the common buffer. No notice, no permits, just a brazen assertion of dominance. They were laying the base for the brick path. Byron was there, supervising, standing with his hands on his hips, a self-satisfied grin on his face. He caught my eye as I stepped onto my porch. "Ah, Marcus, good morning. Getting a head start on the path. Looks good, doesn't it? Just making sure everyone understands the new layout." I walked directly to the property stake, clearly visible despite his encroachment. "Byron, this is my property. You are exactly 3 feet onto my land. There have been no surveys, no easements, no agreements, and certainly no deeds transferred." He chuckled, a short, sharp sound. "Oh, don't be difficult, Marcus. It's for the good of the community. We're all contributing. It's a minor adjustment. Besides, you'll be able to access the path right from your backyard. Think of the convenience." He then added, "Of course, you'll need to sign the land transfer documents and pay the initial access fee by end of week." I stared at him. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. He was essentially building an illegal fence. Or rather, an illegal pathway on my property, then demanding payment for the privilege of using my own land to access a path he was building on it. This was the exact type of absurd fee for sidewalk access I had heard about in other communities, but this was worse. This was seizure. "Byron," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "this is a violation of my property rights, a breach of Article 10, Section 4 of our covenants, and a blatant disregard for city zoning ordinances. You do not have the right to unilaterally appropriate private land, even for a community project." His face hardened. "I am the treasurer, Marcus. I have the full backing of the board on this community beautification project. If you have a problem, you can take it up with them, but I warn you, resisting will be seen as an obstruction to community progress." He made a sweeping gesture at the newly dug trench. "This is happening, Marcus. Get used to it." I went inside. My read-only mode activated. The time for discussion was over. The time for meticulous, surgical precision had begun. I opened my digital files. Every email from Byron, every board meeting minute he dictated, every budget proposal with inflated line items, every vaguely worded memo about the Lakeside Pedestrian Path Initiative was there, chronological, indexed, annotated. First, I downloaded the original survey of my property. I cross-referenced it with the city's zoning maps. The buffer zone he claimed for the path was explicitly designated as a natural preservation area, with strict limitations on construction, without specific environmental impact approvals and city permits, none of which had been secured. I found the section in the city's code that described property line encroachments and the mandatory cease and desist orders. Then, I meticulously reviewed the Homeowners Association bylaws again, specifically Article 7, Section 2, regarding common area improvements. It stipulated a 60-day notice, 2 separate community meetings, and a 2/3 majority vote of all residents, not just the board, for any project exceeding $50,000. Byron's projected cost for the path, even the fudged one, was well over $300,000. I located Article 10, Section 4, no resident shall construct any permanent structure or alteration on another resident's property or common property without express written consent from the affected parties and prior approval by the Homeowners Association Board following all due process procedures. And then Article 11, Section 1, any deviation from these covenants, conditions, and restrictions, particularly concerning property boundaries or financial appropriations, shall be subject to immediate board review, potential legal action, and may result in the responsible party being held personally liable. Finally, I compiled every incident of Byron attempting to bypass procedure, the guest pass debacle, the unapproved landscape changes, the opaque budget items. I linked these smaller infractions to the larger scheme. His pattern of behavior was clear, a consistent disregard for rules. escalating to a brazen abuse of power for perceived personal gain. The lakeside pedestrian path was the climax of his corruption. The access fees and forced land donations were a direct attempt to enrich the HOA's coffers, funds he would eventually siphon off, as his history of vague administrative costs suggested. My case was bulletproof. It was a perfectly constructed chain of evidence, each link fortified with documented proof. I quietly contacted a few other residents whose properties would be affected. They were also quietly furious, but felt powerless against Byron's bullying. I told them to do nothing, just observe. Let him hang himself, I advised. The inevitable happened 2 weeks later. The brick path was half completed, snaking across several private lawns, including mine, without a single resident signing a deed or paying a fee. Byron called an emergency board meeting. Marcus, he bellowed, storming into my office that morning, face flushed. Do you know not a single resident has signed the land donation forms for the path? And the city just sent a stop work order for unpermitted construction on private property and within a natural buffer zone. This is sabotage. It's your job to ensure compliance. I looked up from my computer, my expression serene. Indeed, Byron, it is my job to ensure compliance, not only from the residents, but from the board and its treasurer as well. Don't be impertinent, he snapped. This entire project is stalled. We're losing money daily with this contractor on standby. You clearly failed to communicate the necessity of this project to the residents. This is your incompetence. I pushed a meticulously organized binder across my desk. It was thick. Byron, this binder contains a complete record of every communication, every board minute, every relevant bylaw, and every city ordinance pertaining to the Lakeside Pedestrian Path initiative. It also includes numerous prior instances of your unilateral decision-making. He scoffed, flipping it open. His eyes quickly scanned the first few pages, filled with copies of emails, meeting transcripts, and highlighted sections of bylaws. His bluster began to deflate slightly. At the emergency board meeting that afternoon, Byron tried to pin the blame on me. Marcus here, our property manager, has utterly failed to manage resident expectations. He allowed this situation to escalate to the point of a city-issued stop work order. I calmly rose. With all due respect, Byron, that is an inaccurate assessment of the facts. My role is to ensure adherence to our governing documents. The city's stop work order cites construction without proper permits and encroachment on private property without consent. These are direct consequences of bypassing established procedures. I then projected onto the screen a slide. It was a chronological timeline. Each entry detailed a specific date, a specific action by Byron, and the corresponding bylaw or city ordinance he violated. January 12th, Treasurer Byron Thorne unilaterally initiated the Lakeside Pedestrian Path initiative without a board resolution or community vote, contravening Article 7, Section 2 of our covenants. February 1st, Treasurer Thorne authorized initial survey work on private properties without owner consent or easements, violating Article 10, Section 4. March 5th, Treasurer Thorne approved construction commencement on private properties and within the designated natural buffer zone without securing city permits, violating City Zoning Ordinance 18C and state environmental statutes. March 20th, Treasurer Thorne issued a memo demanding residents donate 3 feet of their private land and pay an access and maintenance fee to use a path built partially on their own land, an illegal appropriation of property, and an unapproved financial levy. I clicked to the next slide. It showed my property survey, overlaid with a clear indication of the 3-foot encroachment. Then, a screenshot of the official city cease and desist order. Finally, a meticulous breakdown of the project budget, highlighting the drastically inflated administrative costs and the sudden appearance of several new, vaguely defined consulting fees that aligned suspiciously with Byron's preferred contractors. The board members were aghast. Their faces went from confusion to dawning horror. One board member, Miss Albright, a retired judge, spoke first. "Byron, did you truly proceed with this construction on private property without any permits or owner consent?" Byron sputtered. "It was a community project for the greater good. Marcus is just being obstructionist. My documentation, time-stamped and irrefutable, suggests otherwise," I stated. "I repeatedly advised against these actions. I documented every warning. These warnings were dismissed." The room went silent. The weight of the evidence was crushing. It wasn't just my word against his. It was his own words, his own directives, his own financial records, all meticulously preserved and presented. The fallout was spectacular. Within days, the city demanded the removal of all unpermitted construction at the HOA's expense. The Lakeside pedestrian path became the Lakeside Demolition Project. The contractor, furious at being caught in the crossfire, threatened to sue for breach of contract and delays. The board, facing potential lawsuits from both the city and the contractor, and now from several irate homeowners, including myself, swiftly moved to remove Byron from his position as treasurer. They initiated a full forensic audit of the HOA's finances. The scale of the administrative costs and the consulting fees he'd approved without proper oversight quickly revealed substantial financial irregularities. It became clear that the exorbitant access fees and land donations were part of a larger scheme to funnel money through the HOA, enriching himself and his associates. Byron was not only removed, but faced a civil lawsuit from the Homeowners Association for gross negligence, breach of fiduciary duty, and potentially embezzlement. The district attorney's office also opened an investigation. His carefully constructed facade of untouchable power crumbled around him. Update. 3 weeks later, the demolition of the path was complete. My lawn was meticulously resodded at the HOA's expense. The new interim treasurer, Miss Albright, personally apologized to me. She ensured a full reimbursement for any legal fees I incurred, though my meticulously documented case made formal legal action unnecessary. Byron's financial empire was facing scrutiny, and several of his businesses were under investigation. His personal assets were frozen pending the outcome of the embezzlement charges. He tried to sell his mansion, but with a pending criminal investigation and civil suits, no one was buying. Update 2. 2 months later, the legal proceedings were well underway. Byron had resigned from all his corporate boards. The initial forensic audit revealed hundreds of thousands of dollars siphoned from the HOA over 2 years, disguised as project overruns and consultant fees for his own shell companies. His arrogant dismissal of rules and records had been his undoing. He thought he was above documentation. I knew documentation was destiny. He ended up posting an absurdly high bond, but remained free pending trial. Update 3. 6 months later, Byron Thorne was found guilty on multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. He received a hefty prison sentence. His once grand estate, overlooking Arbor Lake, was eventually seized to pay restitution to the HOA and various creditors. It was sold at auction for a fraction of its value. The new owners, a lovely family, installed a small, tasteful garden along what used to be Byron's illegally constructed path. No fees, no land grabs, just a quiet, peaceful, rule-abiding neighborhood once more. Precision had prevailed.